Well, nothing new. In fact, that's one thing which was not reported too much in the press because it was precisely the same thing the church has always taught. He very clearly says homosexuals have no place in the priesthood. Says that just in one very short sentence. But he also talks about the abuse crisis and what has happened. And he talks about the remedies to it. First, he says we have to protect the victims and help them as best we can. Secondly, we have to punish the perpetrators. And thirdly, we have to prevent it from happening again. Those are the three clear and obvious responses he has to it. But then he also speaks in this book, Light of the World, about the causes. And it's quite interesting. He says, first of all, there was a problem in moral theology at this time, that the sense of right and wrong, good and evil was blurred. And so many people taught there was no such thing as an intrinsically morally evil act. And that weakened the sense of, of moral conscience among the Catholics, including seminarians. But then he says also there was a mistaken view of seminary admissions. They had a man who might be popular with young people and quite outgoing, but they didn't look carefully enough into his background to realize he was not suited for the priesthood. He had temptations or liabilities in the direction of sexual abuse. So those are two things which he said led to it. But there's a third thing which I found something I hadn't thought about. He was talking to an Irish archbishop, and the archbishop explained that in the 50s and before, the church had a penal code in the canon law. It may not have been perfect, but it was there. But around the 60s, they stopped using it. Why? Because it was looked upon as not an act of love if you punish someone. And the Holy Father says very clearly, there are times when the real act of love is to punish the offender. And we have to get back to that. The use of the papal we, that's an interesting question because I hadn't really noticed it in his writings, but in John Paul II's encyclicals, there was a shift from previous popes into talking in the first person singular, I, in the encyclicals, whereas previously the papal we, the more majestic, more imposing we was used. And now Pope Benedict, Ratzinger, has gone back to using the papal we, but not exclusively. In fact, not necessarily in most of the cases, but he explains that sometimes when he's writing, even in an encyclical, he's expressing something which is his personal view, something which he is putting in his own formulation, and other times he's speaking for the whole community, not just as the individual pope, but as someone who is the chief apostle of all the successors of the apostles, the bishops, but also he's speaking in the name of the whole community. So it's interesting that he's very conscious of the fact that sometimes he uses I and sometimes we. But the papal we is not meant to be a we of superiority or some kind of ecclesiastical nobility. He's just saying it's an expression of our communitarian faith.